Hi, it's Kelsey at Junk Journal Magic. I'm back to show you what I've done with my limited supply journal in the Limited Supply Journal Challenge 2026 hosted by Linny Peace Place. Linda gave us 5 items to begin with and we could choose 4 others. And from that, this is all I have left of my items. I'll show you. I had 30 pieces of paper. I kept using this. I did not have scissors. And to tell you the truth, choosing the ruler could have been an issue because I realized I had to cut this string and I was biting it. I was biting my embroidery floss. So since it was so complicated, I did use a needle. I used this embroidery floss. It was so complicated doing the stitching I did that I just sat downstairs in the comfort of the recliner and I would chew on the end. And since this is my journal, I can admit that. But hey, women and men chewed on their cordage for most of human history. So, yeah, not a problem. It's all glued back underneath these pieces anyway. This is my last wet wipe that I used for everything because this ink technique I had was horribly messy. So, out of all the paper I had, this is all that's left. Those bits. And they're all going in the trash right now. I used my thread. I took a very, very long piece and I smooshed it with this oxide. And I created... Right here, it's very bright. And it was really bright here, and I just kind of dabbed some of the diluted ink on there when I went to smush paper. I took all the little extra long pieces, I tore off the ends, and I dyed everything with smushing. And I dyed this. I need to dye one more piece or remove this because it broke when I tied it. You have to be careful with embroidery floss. I learned that you can't pull too tight or it will break, so I couldn't do anything with that. So I think I'm going to eventually, after all of this process, just go in and snip it and then pull it out, dye it all, and then re-sew it together. It's not a problem. But that really helped tone that orange down. And this was the other color I'd chosen, which to me was more red. This would have actually worked better than the orange. But that's okay. I was going for a color up here I could see with that dyed paper. So, I took the last 3 pages. There were 2 that were torn by the iron when I ironed them. And then there was 1 extra just white and blue graph sheet of graph paper. And I started playing with pieces and I layered. I do a lot of layering like this with making clusters and ephemera. So if you ever want to see any of that, you can go to my gold mining playlist and I do it with lots of stuff. But I took the blue and white and I left it where there's a little bit of clouds peeking out there. And then down here there's a little more just so there's some contrast in this piece. And then I took a long strip of this that was left from this strip. Where was the other one? And this strip. And I just started, I tore this piece off. And then I took this piece and I made 4 pieces, actually 5. There's a 5th one I didn't use. And I kept thinking I could, but I couldn't figure out where to put it. And I thought maybe I could put it inside somewhere, but I didn't. I might still yet. I thought with these different layered pieces and this tiny rectangle that I could make something interesting to look at. So I used the thread to make French knots up here. That looks weird right there. What is that? What is that? Okay, I'm happy now. I made French knots for like little flower clusters, and then I made some crosses, X's, whatever you want to call those. And these, like I said, were not easy to do because I had to leave a knot at the beginning and end behind everywhere I sewed. And then I had to sew it down where those long pieces where I chewed it with my incisors. I chewed it till it tore. And that's so fast and easy. It was just unbelievable how quickly you could tear that with your teeth. I just was careful and made sure everything dried really well. Then I'd glue the strings down behind it where they were out of the area where they would be seen. And then I went ahead and glued them down. And that came out really well. I was thinking I would turn these into like buttons with string in the holes, and I just didn't do that. I don't know what came over me. The idea was a great one, and then I went, ugh. This was a lot of work to make decorations, and I did use a glove at one point because I got tired of trying to clean my hands. But I was in the kitchen, so there was a glove down there. Well, inside,